What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be talking about my 5 favorite jigs, kind of how I like to use them, how I like to throw them, where I like to throw them, different trailers I like to put on them. Then we're going to throw them in the pool and see how they look, so let's get to it. So we're going to start here. This is my favorite all-around jig. This is if I go into a pond, go into a lake, don't really know what it has to bring, don't know if there's much grass, wood, I don't really know what's there. I'm gonna bring this one out. This right here is a Terminator Pro jig. I like the 3/8 ounce in this. Just what I prefer. I feel like it has it's a little bit better size. I do throw the 1/2 ounce sometimes. I really like this jig because of how compact you can make it. And its head right there, if you can see, it's got like, it's kind of like a swim jig head almost, which is why I like it. It's super versatile, and it's like an Archy style swim jig head kinda. So if you need to, you can swim it, right? You can swim it along, you can flip it, you can pitch it. I like this, either this Rage crawl type trailer on it, or I also like kind of I don't know if I have one in here, but it's more of kind of like a chigger crawl will work. Kind of like a chigger crawl style trailer, or a vial crawl from Biospawn. Those are 3 trailers I really throw on this one or any of my compact jigs, because they don't have real long appendages on them. They don't have a real long body. A lot of them you can make real short and stocky, which is great for a compact jig. And green pumpkin, black and blue. I do have a black blue purple, great color, and it does have rattles in it. My thoughts on rattles, I don't really care. I mean, if they come with them, great. If not, I don't really mind. This rattle actually fell out of it. There's no rattle actually in it, but I don't really care. I don't really find it makes a difference. It's not really something on my bucket list when I'm buying a jig. Oh, this needs to have a rattle. This is going to be the first one we'll test out. We'll test them out in a minute. I'll go through all of them. But, so this is the first one. Just 3/8 ounce. Next up we have ball head jigs. So, so this one, the Terminator jig, I'm just going to be throwing it pretty much anywhere. I can throw this anywhere. I can swim it through grass, flip grass with it. It comes in and out real easily with that narrow head. I can, wood, comes through wood easily. Any rocky bottoms, sandy bottoms, gravel, it's an all-around jig. If you're looking for an all-around jig, go ahead and pick this one. Like, if you're going to the store and buy one, they sell them at Dick's. They sell them pretty much everywhere. Bass Pro. Really easy to get, real good jig. I think they're only $5 and super high quality. They got a real nice stout hook on them, real nice weed guard, nice paint job, good hook keeper, nice metal one, wire one. So that's basically where I'm throwing that one. It's got a real nice skirt. Next up we have our ball head jigs. In the pool I'm going to be testing out this one. This is a Booyah ball head jig. And I'm testing out this one because it has a lot more skirt material. My favorite ball head jig is the Gerald Swindle Buckeye Lures Ballin' Out jig. And I prefer these in the 1/2 ounce because usually I'm skipping docks with these. The ball head jigs are my favorite to skip docks with. So pretty much I don't really, or rocks, ledges, sometimes I'll use a football jig, but most of the time, if the ledge is 10 to 12 foot, I'm going to be using a 1/2 ounce ball head jig. For whatever reason, I just like it better. I'll usually cut the weed guard in half. I'll take half the strands off of it if I'm fishing rock. When I fished Lake Hartwell, I caught a few decent fish on a ledge with this, and this has caught a lot of fish. It's got some paint missing, but I throw this with a Z Crawl Jr. That's my favorite trailer to throw on these ball head jigs. since they have a real long, slender profile just by themselves, right? So here, there it is. It's like a slender, more slender. That's a Booyah. And then here's one. See, that's the ball and out jig right there. It's real long and thin. Whereas if we took like, let's just see here. This right here is just a straight king half-ounce one. See how thick and bulky that is? That's real thick. It's just a real bulky presentation even without a trailer on it. So that's why I really like this. It's got enough plastic and bulk on there that I can skip it real well. So this is my all-around favorite skipping jig. Sometimes I'll throw it in a 3/8 ounce if I'm fishing 5 foot or less. If I'm fishing anything above, 6 to 12 foot under docks, I'm gonna use that half-ounce. I can skip it a little bit further under there. I can stay a little bit further off the dock. But I really like how the ball head, and the ball head jig, the thing that's different with ball heads from an Archy style head kind of, is ball head jigs fall real flat. They go straight down. They don't really have much movement in the water column when they fall. This jig, it might slide to one side or slide to the other as it falls because of that head. It can catch water in a lot of different places, and its fall might be hindered a little bit when it goes down. It might have a little bit of jerkiness going down. This ball head jig's gonna fall pretty much just straight down, which is good for those reaction strikes with that half-ounce. Fish is sitting under that dock, you see this skipping across the water, and it just falls straight. And with that half-ounce, it's gonna fall fairly quickly, and they just have to react to it, which is why I like it. And that's pretty much why I choose it. Also, the profile is super easy to skip. Real flat, real streamlined. This one, it's got these big appendages. I mean, it's gonna flap around. It's got not as wide of a head. The head on this is wider. Just everything about the ball head jig, for me, makes a perfect skipping jig. Yeah, you can throw jigs like this one, which have a real flat head on them, which is gonna work. But if you look at it, it's basically the same, right? It's just that this is a half a sphere. This is a hemisphere. It's just missing the front half of that ball. So that's why I like it, and it's real slim. You can swim it even. This Z-Crawl Jr. is one of the most versatile baits. You can flip it, pitch it, put it on a jig, put it on a chatterbait, put it on a swim jig. Great swim jig trailer. And so that's the next one we're gonna test. We're gonna see if this is really just good for reaction strikes or if it's gonna have some flare, because the skirts on these are really thin. Like, this is probably a 20 strand skirt. This one's probably a 40, and a lot of these are probably 40s. But this one, any one on the market, it really does have less skirt material. But we're gonna see how that reacts. We're gonna see how that does with it, and you're gonna see. All right, so next up here we have the Mop Jig, and this is a real classic lure. It's been, it's been advertised a bunch, and the Mop Jig is a really big bait, right? Here's one with a trailer. Here's one without a trailer. They're really bulky by themselves, which means they're gonna be bulky with a trailer. And basically what I got on here is a Gary Yamamoto Flappin' Hog. And that is my favorite for these. Doesn't have too much action. Doesn't have a great deal of action. But it does go really well when it's paired with that living rubber skirt. Now this living rubber skirt really moves a lot. Now I haven't tested it in the pool yet, but I've known from just throwing it around and kind of seeing it in the water, swimming around, this has a lot of action. And if I were to say, I'm going to say this is going to have probably some of the best action out of all the baits. And it's got living rubber in there, that circular, that round kind of rubber in there. And then it's got some accent colors of just the traditional skirt material, whatever that is. There's some, whatever other rubber that is, but it's not. They have like the living rubber, and then they have accent colors. And it's got a real flat head. It's going to stand up real well. The weed guard is not that thick. Not as thick as this one. Not even as thick as the ball head jig. It's probably it's a real thin one. Probably second thinnest behind a finesse jig. It's probably only a 20 or 15 strand, maybe. Probably a 20 strand weed guard. But the one mistake people make with these mop jigs is trimming them. You do not want to trim them out of the package. When it comes out of the package, you want to leave it how it is. You want to leave it. You don't want to shorten it. You don't want to trim it up to the hook, an inch under the hook or whatever. You want to leave it how it comes out of the package. It's designed to be fish out of the package. Do not trim your mop jigs. Okay? If you're going to trim anything on your mop jigs, you can trim the weed guard. I trim all my weed guards for the most part. I feel like get a better hookup ratio. I also thin out the skirt a little bit in a few spots. Right? So, I don't know if you can see that, but in a few spots I've cut the skirt in just a couple places, just a couple strands. I cut a little bit shorter, maybe in half. Maybe I cut them real close to the head, maybe down here. But I just cut them at a couple different lengths. That way, when it flares up in the water, not all the strands are sticking out at the same spot. You got some sticking out a little bit more because they're shorter, so they're gonna stick out more. You got some, you know, in the middle there, but it's gonna give it a little bit different presentation if you just kind of trim up in a couple different spots. And that's a real key thing when I'm, you know, get a jig out of the box. I'm gonna trim the weed guard. I'm gonna trim the skirt as necessary, you know, clean it up a little bit, and then I'm gonna put it in the box. With mop jigs, I don't really do too much to them, but, you know, shorten up the trailer a little bit. I want that trailer to be just sticking out on a mop jig, on a jig like the ball head or the Archy style head. I want the legs to start just about where that skirt ends, right? Just about where that skirt ends, I want those legs to start. That way they have the most action as possible. But here, I'm not really using too, you know, much of a flapping trailer. It doesn't have a lot of action. But on the mop jig, that rubber's really gonna spread out. And that just stand-up action that it has with that trailer is just gonna really, and it's just gonna wave. It's just gonna wave, and it's gonna be really, really intriguing to those fish, because that rubber is just gonna move around. And so this one I'm gonna be throwing around, I mean, really anything. Anywhere you would throw this one. You know, maybe not grass, probably not grass, but I mean wood, base of cypress trees, laydowns, pilings, docks, marinas. I mean anything like that. Gravel, you know, hard bottoms. You could even probably ledge fish with it. But this is going to be a big fish, big bite bait. You're probably not going to get as many bites as you are on a smaller presentation, but it's going to give you big fish. And it will also produce bites. Like, it's not just going to be just 5-pounders we eat this. I mean, other fish, smaller fish than that will eat it, but this is primarily going to be a big fish bait. You know, you're going out, you need that fifth fish, you need that big fish, that big kicker fish. You've been throwing this one around, you got 4 or 5 in the box with this one. You know, you got 13 pounds. You need a 5-pound kicker, whatever. This is one you're pulling out right here, and you're gonna fish that. It's all the same places, right? So that one's gonna be interesting to try out. I'm really interested to see how that rubber moves, kind of what it looks like, and what the trailer does, and see if it really does stand up. I mean, that head, it says it's designed to stand up, so I guess we'll see. All right, next up we have the finesse jigs. Now I'm only going to be throwing one of these. I think I'm going to be throwing this one right here. This is the Buckeye Lures shroom finesse jig or whatever. It's fairly recent, I believe. But that's one of them. I throw my finesse jigs anywhere from a 3/16 to a quarter. I don't really differ from that on my finesse jigs, because then I feel like it doesn't really get a finesse jig. If I go down to an 1/8 ounce, I feel like that's a little light for me. If I'm going down to an 1/8 ounce, I'm going to be throwing a Ned rig. I'm not going to be throwing all this skirt stuff and whatever. If I need to go that light, I'm just going to probably throw a Ned rig with maybe a little small crawl on it. Just a straight Ned rig. I'm not really going to go lower than a quarter, or else I don't know. That's just not what I do. And then I also have this Terminator finesse jig. And the only real difference in these two is, right, this Terminator one has more of an Archy style head. This one more has, the Buckeye one has more of that traditional shroom style head. It also has a split double weed guard there. And this one just has a singular weed guard. I throw, on my finesse jigs, 90% of the time, I'm going to be throwing a Zoom super speed crawl. Just a Zoom speed crawl, super speed crawl, ultra vibe speed crawl. Zoom ultra vibe speed crawl. And that, it's a real slender, just like that Z Crawl Jr. It's a real thin profile for those real thin baits. Right, here's that same jig without a trailer. It's a real thin jig. So I'm going to be throwing a real thin trailer on it. Right there. And so I've thrown this a lot. I've caught a lot of fish using this. And I'm kind of interested to see how much action it really has for a finesse jig. Like, I don't know. I just don't really expect to have a finesse jig to have that much action to it, but I'm gonna see. Fish really seem to like it. I get a lot of fish on it when days are tough. You know, if I'm fishing this one and I have one in the box for a pound, maybe I need to switch up to something smaller. You know, maybe I need something more finesse. Maybe it has less action, I don't know. But it'll be interesting to see, because maybe you can apply it to other jigs and get bigger fish. But I don't know. I don't know what. So we'll see. That's why we're doing it. And lastly, the last jig here is the football jig. And this one right here is just a hard hat jigs, I believe. It's not even an expensive one. I have Terminator jigs, football head jigs. I don't like them as much as just this one. It's just, I mean, you could use any football jig, but this is just a super generic football jig, right? This Terminator one is like some weird shape. It's got eyes on it and everything. It's got like a weird head shape. I don't even know. This one's just standard. Just got a lot of skirt on it. Good size to it. 3/4 ounce. Nice and compact. On my football jigs, I really stay exclusive to just a chigger crawl. It's a real simple bait, as you can see. Real simple. And it's just gonna go down. It's gonna stand up. It's just gonna flap around, drag it. You know, it'll come across. Sometimes I use a pit boss, but I don't really throw football jigs that much. If I'm fishing a ledge, usually I'm fishing a ledge in between 10 and 15 feet, therefore I'm just going to be using this one. I'm not really fishing, and around me I don't really have that deep of water where I would, or any ledges that deep where I'd be fishing, you know, football. Occasionally I will fish it on like a 10-foot ledge, but, or like if I'm dragging it or something. But really, this ball head jig has really taken the place for me of this football jig. I know there are times and places where you need to throw this, but this has taken up a lot of the spots that this one would have. And I don't know. We're gonna see. Maybe this one will have better action. I should be using this one. Maybe I'll get more bites. I don't know. Go ahead and check it out. So those are the 5 jigs that I'm gonna be going over. And before we do that, I'm just gonna kind of explain the rods that I use when I'm flipping these jigs. So this rod right here is a 7.4 heavy. This is a Quantum G-Force rod by Gerald Swindle. I really like this rod. Now, it says it's a heavy, but the reason I use this rod is because it's not, I feel like it's not a true heavy. It's got, I'd say it's more in between a medium heavy and a heavy. It's not, it has a little bit more tip than a heavy. So I'd say it's about in between a medium heavy and a heavy, in my opinion. And on here I have that paired with a Lose LFS speed spool, 7:5 to 1 gear ratio, and I have 20-pound Seagar on this. 20-pound, and with this rod, I'm going to be fishing this, the Archy style head, if I'm fishing it around thicker laydowns. If I'm fishing around real heavy, like docks, if I'm fishing docks, I'm going to be using this because they're going to wrap me around the pylons, and I don't want to be using my next rod for that kind of stuff. You know, this right here, if I'm skipping docks and there's a lot of, you know, stuff there, if I'm fishing cypress trees with the mop jig, I'm going to be fishing that. And that's really what I'm using this for. Anything heavy, anything where there's a lot of stuff that I can get wrapped around, or heavy cover that I need to get that fish out and not worry about that line breaking. That's what I'm going to be using this one. And I rarely lose a fish on it. When I set that hook, it does not rip the hook out of the fish's mouth. I rarely lose fish. I'd say 1 out of 50. 1 out of 50 fish I would lose on this. So I lose a fish about 2% of the time when I use this rod, which is really good odds for jigs. With that big, thick weed guard, this really gets that hook in. And so yeah, so the next rod I use for flipping is this Halo XD3 Pro, and I got this with 14-pound Suffix, and it's the same thing, 7.5 to 1 LFS speed spool loose reel. I really like these reels. These are for $100. This and the Revo X are probably the two best reels for $100 on the market, hands down. The quality is just, it's just insane. I mean, you can't beat it. This is a 7.3 medium heavy, and for this I'm going to be using it for lighter stuff. Maybe if I'm skipping docks, but it's real light docks, I'm using the 3/8 ounce. I'm using let's say I'm using that 3/8 ounce ball head jig instead of a half, and it's real light, you know, 5 foot or less, real light docks, not a lot of cover around them, no brush piles or anything around them. I'm probably going to use this one if I'm fishing the Finesse jig, pretty much no matter what, because a Finesse jig, you can't have that 20-pound line. It's just going to impede the action too much, and it's just not going to be good. So anytime I'm using this Finesse jig, I'm going to be using the 7.3 medium heavy with 14-pound line. Also, sometimes with the football jig, I'll use it. With this, if I'm fishing ledges, I may use it. Really, anything I'm not fishing lighter stuff, you know, sparser laydowns, nothing, just anything, nothing real thick. I'm gonna be basically using this rod. It's got a little bit more tip, a little bit less backbone, but it's a great jig rod, great all-around rod for anything really. Swim jigs, chatterbaits. This rod's pretty good, pretty solid. So anything, I don't know. But let's just get into the pool. I mean, that's what I really want to see. So let's do it. guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys got something out of today's video. If you have any questions or suggestions of what you want to see in the pool next, go ahead and leave them down below. Good luck in your next fishing adventure, guys. See you next time.